Hey, Tom Rabbit! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit! We're not dealing with people who are innocent bystanders. Like if I came along and I told you that there's a large uh, creature in one of the Great Lakes, like the Loch Ness monster, where you can sit back and say, "Well, can you prove that to me?" And you have the luxury of being neutral, but God is not something that you can be neutral about.
So what if I asked you, do you believe in the Loch Ness monster world or the not Loch Ness monster
That's
world?
that. Okay, that's that. First of all, you're not understanding the landscape here. Okay, there's no such thing as the Loch Ness monster world versus the not Loch Ness monster. The Loch Ness monster is a contingent temporal being that has located within a time-space coordinates. The God world versus the not God world, okay, is a composite worldview that is universally governed or not governed by God. Okay, do you understand the difference?
I guess, but I just run into a
No,
problem when you
no,
say demonstrate.
I don't think you're understanding. Okay,
I
so
mean,
in the God world, God is the concrete universal that all things are related to. So in the not God world, then everything would not be related. Okay. So when
I
you bring up
understand that.
the Loch, there's no such thing as the Loch Ness monster world versus the non-Loch Ness monster world. There's nobody out there who see the Loch Ness monster world, if you were being sincere, would be a functional replacement for God. Okay. It would that would be God as far as you were concerned.
Okay. My main point was though, like I get what you're saying, right? Like God is a proposition which affects all of our existence and reality, right? And the Loch Ness monster is not. But my contention here is like just help me understand this. um, how would I demonstrate, like, if my criteria was I needed to demonstrate something for me to believe it, how do I demonstrate the non-existence of the Loch Ness monster, right? If my
Oh,
criteria
yeah, you demonstrate the non-existence of something called, you give an argument called the absence of evidence is evidence of absence in some cases. So
okay,
the point is this, is that atheism is not sitting back in your little folding lounge chair, okay, and just saying, prove it to me. Atheism and theism are propositions which negate each other. So when atheists say, prove to me that God exists, and we point out to them that this is just simply an excuse because atheism has not been proven to them, then they bicker with us that it's just we're the one making the claims. No, both the theist and the atheist are both making the claim. Okay. What we're dealing with most atheists, okay, 98% of most atheists are intellectually unsophisticated and are unprepared to have a mature philosophical discussion and debate on atheism. That's why they descend into bickering like they're snotty 14-year-olds who didn't take their ADD meds. Okay. I present a much higher intellectual philosophical presentation of the existence of God and refutation of atheism, but I'm dealing with a bunch of mental midgets and people who have teenage minds. That's why it's so difficult to have conversations on this. Okay?
okay.
So
So,
are you an atheist?
I guess I am. I'm kind of questioning.
Okay. Well, no, you either have a positive belief in God as your creator or you don't.
Okay, I guess I don't.
Okay. So, what is the rational basis for not believing in God? Let's see how long it takes you to become evasive and deceptive. Okay, everyone listen in. Let's see how long it takes him to be evasive and deceptive. So tell me,
Okay.
what is your rational basis for not believing in God?
Well, I'll try my best. I'm not a apologetic atheist or something like that, but I guess it's because I don't have any evidence.
Oh, and how do you support that claim?
Um, well, I think that evidence is something that
How did you decide that the sun, the moon, and the stars all don't belong to God? How'd you figure that out?
well, I mean, to get to that conclusion, I think that you have to assume that it's God.
It's not an answer to my question. You've decided that all these things are not indicative of God. Have you determined what they are indicative of?
Not really, but
Then how did you exclude God?
well, it's not apparent to me.
No,
that
no,
is independent of God.
you just told me that they're not evidence of God. Well, what are they evidence of?
I don't know, but
Wait,
doesn't
hold,
necessarily
stop,
mean.
stop. You just told me that they're not evidence of God, but then when I ask you what are they evidence of, you said you don't know. So if you don't know what they're evidence of, how do you know they're not evidence of God?
Well, I mean, evidence. Something can only be evidence when put into like an.
Listen, Terrence, do you understand how you are failing miserably here? You told me that the world around you is not evidence for God. You're making a categorical universal declaration. The world is not evidence for God. That's your position. I then
Okay.
ask you, what is it evidence of? And you go, oh, I don't know.
Well, what I mean is, I haven't been presenting.
Terrence, are you a teenager?
Yes,
Okay, how old are you, Terrence?
18.
Okay, all right, I'm 61. Okay, now I'm operating at a 61-year-old's education and intellect level. You're dealing at an 18-year-old level. Okay, now that doesn't mean you're stupid. Okay, but you need to focus on what I'm saying to you instead of cliched responses that you would give at the cafeteria table. You said nothing is evidence for God. And then I ask you, what is it evidence of? And you say, well, I don't know. Then that begs the question, how did you rule it out of evidence for God? How did you do that?
Well, um, I guess my epistemological framework um is rooted in, I guess, empirical evidence.
Yeah, that's a okay. Stop with the bullshit.
I'm sorry.
What you just said was pure bullshit. You know it, and I know, and everybody listening.
Okay.
Okay, that was a non-substantive response. How did you determine that all these things are not have their ultimate root in God? How did you determine that?
I determined it because there's nothing, there's no, hmm,
So you
I
got
don't know.
nothing.
I haven't
Yeah,
been,
you got nothing. Yeah, you just sit there, 18 years old. You go, oh, there's no evidence for God. Do you realize what a grandiose statement that is? Do you have any idea what a grandiose statement that is? To say nothing is evidence for God.
I mean, the thing is,
Now,
like, you can point to any,
what do you have to support that claim is true?
well, can I just explain my logical
No,
thinking?
you can answer the question instead of dodging and evading like most atheists do. You see, this is what I deal with every single day dealing with atheists. I deal with atheists who lie, who dodge, who evade, who double talk, who bicker. Now, explain to me, how did you determine that the sun, the moon, and the stars and the rabbit running across your front lawn, how did you determine that it cannot and does not stand in causal relations to God? How did you determine that?
Well, causal relations, I'm not sure about that. I can't determine that
Sir,
it doesn't have causal relations.
when you say there's no evidence for God, you're talking about causal relations.
Okay, but like the thing is, there can be things, right, that have causal relations to something, but
Terrence,
not
you're
on
not
itself.
Terrence,
Whoa.
you're not addressing the question. If you were, I wouldn't be responding in this fashion. Now,
Okay.
you said there's no evidence for God. I want you to show me how you know it's not evidence for God.
Well, this is how I determine. This is my criteria of evidence, right? This is how I think. Can I
Terrence, I'm
explain?
going to interrupt you again because you're again dodging. When I stop talking and you open up your mouth, all I want to hear you do is answer my
That's what I'm
question.
trying to
Now,
do.
tell me how you determine that all these things cannot and do not stand in relations to God. Go ahead.
I'll have to start with defining my idea of evidence. Can I do that?
No, I want you to tell
I'm
me.
not gonna diverge.
I want you to tell me why the moon is not God's.
Well, because it, just because it may have causal relations to God, right, does not
No,
necessarily mean.
Terrence, I'm being very patient with you. Tell me why the moon is not a creation of God.
I don't know if it's not a
Okay,
creation of God.
you've now contradicted yourself because a minute ago you said the moon, everything is not evidence for God. So the moon is not evidence for God, but now you don't know you don't know. 1 minute again, you said you did know. You know that everything is not evidence for God. You know that the moon is not evidence for God. Now you don't know.
Well, the thing is,
All right, Terrence,
can I just explain?
we're done. We're done. Okay? You're just blathering like you're at the cafeteria table. You're wasting my time. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but you're wasting my time with your
Me
blathering.
neither, but I have one point.
You told me there's no evidence for God. I have been asking you for the last 15 or 20 minutes to explain to me how you know it's not evidence for God, and all I've heard is bloviating. So we're done. Thank
I
you for
don't think we're
wasting
on
my
the
time.
same page of what
Okay,
evidence
yeah, we're
means.
not on the same page, okay? See, it doesn't matter whether they're 18 or 58. They're all pathological liars. They're compulsive liars. Oh, there's no evidence for God. Okay, can you defend that? And then all we get is bloviating. How do you know
And
the
then we
moon
get
isn't?
a
Yeah,
proprietary definition of evidence.
yeah, and then we get these little mini community college lectures, which my eyes start glazing over and say, "What are you even talking about?" They want to make these universal. Well, there's no evidence for God. Well, how'd you determine that? Do you know what everything is ultimately evidence for? Well, I don't know. Well, then how did you rule out God? And then we just get, well, my epistemology. Thank you, Tom Rabbit.